Carl Jung warned us about this over 100 years ago. And almost nobody listened. He said that the most exhausting thing a human being can do is spend their entire life pretending to be someone they are not. And he said that the longer you do it, the more it costs you in ways you will not even recognize until the damage is already done. Stay right there. Because what Jung understood about fake personalities is about to change how you see yourself and everyone around you completely. If you are new here, subscribe right now and drop a comment below telling me how much of the personality you show the world is actually the real you. Be honest. I read every single comment. Now let us get into it. What Jung meant by a fake personality. Before we go any further, we need to be clear about what Jung actually meant when he warned about fake personalities. Because it is not what most people assume. He was not talking about con artists. He was not talking about pathological liars or manipulative people pretending to be something they are not for personal gain. He was talking about something far more common, far more subtle, and far more personally relevant to almost every single person watching this video right now. He was talking about the persona. The persona is the personality you constructed over years in response to your environment. The version of yourself that learned through trial and error, through reward and punishment, through belonging and rejection, which parts of you were acceptable to show and which parts needed to stay hidden. The professional version of you. The family version. The social version. The version that knows instinctively which opinions to voice and which ones to keep quiet. Which emotions are safe to express and which ones need to be managed before anyone sees them. Which desires are acceptable to have and which ones feel too dangerous to acknowledge even privately. This is the fake personality Jung was warning about. Not a deliberate deception of others, but a slow, unconscious, deeply personal betrayal of yourself. And he said with the urgency of someone who had seen the consequences too many times that living inside a fake personality will eventually hollow you out from the inside. That the distance between who you perform yourself to be and who you actually are becomes, over time, one of the most painful and disorienting experiences a human being can have. How the fake personality is built. Nobody builds a fake personality on purpose. That is the first thing to understand. It happens slowly. Across years. In response to very specific and very human experiences. It starts in childhood. You were born with a nature. A genuine temperament. Real preferences and sensitivities and ways of experiencing the world that were entirely your own. And then the world began to respond to that nature. Some parts of it were welcomed. Celebrated. Reinforced. Other parts were not. Were corrected. Were punished. Were met with disapproval or withdrawal or the particular kind of silence that a child learns very quickly means they have gone too far. And so you began to edit. To adjust. To shape the personality you showed outward based on what the world around you was willing to receive. You became more agreeable because disagreement created conflict and conflict felt dangerous. You became more confident in presentation because vulnerability was punished. You became more serious or more funny or more capable or more quiet depending on what your specific environment rewarded. None of this was a choice in the conscious sense. It was adaptation. Intelligent, necessary, survival-level adaptation. The same instinct that every social creature uses to maintain belonging in the group it depends on for survival. The problem Jung identified is that what begins as intelligent adaptation can calcify over time into a prison. When the adapted self becomes the only self you know. When the performance becomes so constant and so complete that you lose access to the genuine nature underneath it. When the face you show the world is so different from the face you see in your own private reflection that you have started to feel like a stranger to yourself. That is the warning Jung was issuing. Not that adaptation is wrong. But that losing yourself inside the adaptation is one of the most psychologically costly things a human being can do. Right here I want to pause and say something directly to you. If this is resonating, if you are recognizing the gap between the personality you perform and the person you actually are underneath it, drop a comment right now and tell me where you feel that gap the most. At work. In relationships. With family. Somewhere else. Your honesty in the comments creates a space where other people feel safe being honest too. And that matters more than you know. And if you are not yet subscribed, please do it right now. Hit subscribe and turn on the bell notification. We go deep on Carl Jung, psychology, and the real conversations about who you are and who you were meant to be. Now let us finish this. The warning and what it costs you. Jung's warning was specific. And it was urgent. He said that the longer a person lives inside a fake personality, the more completely they lose access to their genuine self. And that losing access to the genuine self has consequences that show up in every area of life. The first consequence is a chronic sense of emptiness. You can build an entire life inside a fake personality. Career. Relationships. Social status. Financial security. You can check every box the world told you to check. And still wake up with a hollowness that nothing on the outside seems to be able to fill. Because the things that fill a human life with genuine meaning, the sense of being truly known, truly expressed, truly aligned with something real inside yourself, are not available to the fake personality. They are only available to the real one. The second consequence is exhaustion that has no clear cause. Performing a personality that is not your own is metabolically expensive. It costs energy continuously. Not in a way you can point to exactly, but in the way that any sustained performance costs the performer a kind of bone-deep tiredness that arrives regardless of how much you sleep or rest. People living inside fake personalities are often described by the people around them as the most energetic and capable people in the room. And they are the most exhausted people in the room. Simultaneously. Because all of that energy is going into maintenance of the performance rather than into genuine living. The third consequence is the collapse. Jung believed that what is suppressed does not disappear. It accumulates. Builds pressure. And eventually, through crisis, through breakdown, through the particular kind of psychological collapse that often arrives in midlife, it forces its way to the surface. The midlife crisis that popular culture makes into a joke is, in Jungian terms, one of the most serious and significant events in a person's psychological life. It is the moment when the genuine self, suppressed for decades inside the fake personality, finally refuses to be contained any longer. It arrives as depression. As sudden inexplicable dissatisfaction. As the feeling that the life you built is somehow not yours. As the desperate and disorienting question, who am I outside of the role I have been playing? Jung did not see this as a breakdown. He saw it as a breakthrough trying to happen. As the psyche demanding, finally and urgently, that the real person be allowed to live. But he also said, and this is the core of the warning, that the cost of waiting for the collapse is enormous. That the person who addresses the gap between their fake and genuine personality consciously and willingly pays a much smaller price than the person who waits until the collapse forces the reckoning. The warning is simple. Do not wait. How to recognize your own fake personality. Here are the specific signs that the personality you are presenting to the world has drifted significantly from who you actually are. You feel most like yourself when you are alone. When the performance pauses. When there is nobody to manage and nothing to maintain. The relief you feel in solitude is proportional to the distance between your fake and genuine personality. You change significantly depending on who you are with. Not in the normal adaptive way that all people adjust their communication style between different contexts. But in a deeper way. Where your values, your opinions, your entire demeanor shift to match what you sense the person in front of you needs from you. You have opinions you never voice. Desires you never acknowledge. A version of yourself you visit only in your most private thoughts and never allow into the actual conversations of your life. You feel a particular kind of loneliness even in rooms full of people. Not the loneliness of being physically alone. The loneliness of being unseen. Of being surrounded by people who know the performance well but have never met the performer. You cannot clearly answer the question, what do I actually want? Not what should I want? Not what do the people around me want for me? What do I actually want for my own life? The question feels either impossible to answer or vaguely dangerous to ask. What Jung said to do about it. Jung did not leave the warning without a path forward. He called the path individuation. And he described it as the lifelong process of becoming who you actually are. Not who you were told to be. Not who the world shaped you into. Not the personality you constructed to survive your environment. But the genuine self underneath all of it. Individuation begins with a single commitment. The commitment to start taking your own inner life seriously. To pay attention to what genuinely moves you rather than what you have learned to perform being moved by. To notice what genuinely excites you rather than what you have decided it is acceptable to be excited by. To ask regularly, honestly, without the cushioning of justification, which parts of the life you are living were chosen and which parts were simply accumulated. It continues with the gradual, imperfect, courage requiring work of letting more of the real person into the actual life. Not all at once. Not dramatically. But consistently. One honest conversation at a time. One genuine opinion voiced where a performed one used to live. One boundary set where endless accommodation used to be. One desire acknowledged and pursued where suppression used to be the automatic response. Jung believed this work was the most important work a human being could do. Not because it made life easier. But because it made life real. And a real life, however complicated and imperfect and different from the performance, is the only kind of life that can be genuinely and fully lived. Carl Jung issued his warning 100 years ago. He warned that the fake personality, however convincing it looks from the outside and however necessary it felt to construct, will eventually cost you the only thing that actually matters. Yourself. Not your career. Not your relationships. Not your status or your reputation or the approval of the people whose opinions shaped you. Yourself. The genuine, complicated, irreplaceable person who existed before the world started editing them into something more acceptable. That person did not disappear when the fake personality was built over them. They are still there. Quieter than they should be. More patient than they deserve to be. Still sending signals through the hollowness and the exhaustion and the private sense that the life you are living is somehow not quite yours. Hear those signals. Not because it is easy to follow them. Not because the path of individuation is comfortable or straightforward or guaranteed to make the people around you happy. But because the alternative, spending the rest of your life in a performance of yourself while the real you waits, is the cost Jung was warning you about. And it is a cost that compounds quietly every single day until the day the collapse forces the reckoning you could have chosen willingly at any point. Choose it willingly. Choose it now. The real you has been waiting long enough. If this video opened something in you today, please do 3 things right now. Like this video so that more people who need Jung's warning can find it. Drop a comment below telling me one thing about your genuine personality that your fake personality has been keeping hidden. And if you are not yet part of this community, hit subscribe and turn on the bell right now. We go deep on Carl Jung, psychology, and the real work of becoming who you actually are. Every week. Without fail. See you next tomorrow.